Welcome one and all, this is Graham from the Sega Spirit Show with our 12 Days of SEGA Christmas special. Across the decades, Sega has given us more than just the best consoles and blue hedgehogs. They've sprinkled in festive cheer, quirky holiday events, and even entire games wrapped up in tinsel. From hidden Christmas surprises on the Dreamcast to snowy adventures on the Mega Drive, Sega has a long tradition of celebrating the season in ways only they could. So join me as I count down 12 Sega titles that bring Christmas to life, sometimes in magical ways, sometimes in unexpected places, and sometimes with a little bit of holiday chaos. This is the ultimate stocking stuffer tour through Sega's festive history. And before I begin, you might question why I put these games listed in this particular order. Well, you'll have to wait to the end of the video to find out why. The first game on our list needs no introduction, but I'll do it anyway. Sonic Adventure launched in Japan on the 23rd of December 1998, just before Christmas, and became a Dreamcast launch title in North America on the 9th of September 1999, with Europe following on the 14th of October 1999. Developed by Sonic Team and published by Sega, it was Sonic's first fully 3D adventure, introducing hub worlds, multiple playable characters, and cinematic storytelling. The Christmas time came through downloadable content, a novelty at the time. Players could connect their Dreamcast online and download seasonal packs that added Christmas trees and festive music to Station Square. Being released just 2 days before Christmas, Japan received an exclusive Christmas 1998 event available at launch. It was different from the later global Christmas party event. 6 reasonable-sized Christmas trees were placed in Station Square. When touched, they played a variety of classic Christmas carols, but it was only available to download for 3 days, from the 23rd of December 98 until the 25th of December 98. This meant that Japanese gamers needed to buy the game at launch and get online as soon as possible, otherwise they missed out. The 1999 Global Christmas Party event, however, was available in all regions, and it placed a giant tree in the front of the Central District Hotel and 2 other smaller ones in Station Square, plus some additional trees around the town centre. Touching the trees in this version played an a cappella version of Dreams Dreams from Christmas Nights into Dreams and displayed season's greetings to the player. When coupled with the Halloween and Y2K events, this made Sonic Adventure one of the earliest console games to experiment with multiple seasonal digital events. Though, what many gamers don't realise is that Sonic Adventure's DLC was not the same as the DLC you find in games today. Due to the limitations of the internet and the Dreamcast VMU memory size, downloadable content that added extra assets and events to the hub world or levels simply wasn't possible on the console. Instead, every Sonic Adventure special event, including the different Christmas events, US and European launch parties, the American AT&T time attacks, the European Reebok event, and the Twinkle Park Halloween event, were all programmed and locked away on the game's discs. Technically, though, they can be classified as DLC, because to access the locked content, gamers needed to connect to the internet and download a file to their VMUs. The file itself was effectively a key that unlocked the content hidden on the game's disc. This is also why you need to have different regional versions of Sonic Adventure to experience all the DLC. For example, it's simply not possible to download the American special events if you own a PAL version of the game, because the PAL disc simply doesn't have that content. Sonic Adventure wasn't the only Dreamcast title to do this. A few other games had locked content only accessible via a downloadable key. This might seem like a bit of a letdown once you understand how the DLC worked, but this was Sega's way of getting around technological limitations of the time and delivering some excellent free bonuses to gamers, while also showcasing that the future of gaming would be online. While not specifically being a Christmas game, with the Japanese release date being just in time for Christmas and the additional Christmas events available in all regions, Sonic Adventure became a fond Christmas memory for many fans. For this second entry, I am cheating a little bit by including 2 games, but that's because they are technically part of the same franchise. They are both very different, and one of them is often considered to be an absolutely terrible game, although I think it's just misunderstood and is only slightly terrible. Released in 1990, the Home Alone movie became a Christmas family favourite, and when something becomes popular, it, of course, receives merchandise, including video games. Home Alone video games were released across many consoles, including the NES, Super Nintendo, Game Boy, Game Gear, Amiga, MS-DOS, Master System, and Mega Drive. Each version of the game is very different and loosely based on the movie. Developed by Probe Software and published by Sega in 1992, the Mega Drive and Game Gear adaptations follow the film's premise the closest. Kevin McAllister must defend different houses in the neighborhood from the wet bandits, using traps and improvised weapons for either 20 or 40 minutes, depending on the difficulty, until the police arrive. The Mega Drive version blended platforming with resource management, while the Game Gear version simplified mechanics for handheld play. During the game, the wet bandits drive around the neighborhood in their van until they decide to enter a house, where they proceed to steal items inside. Kevin has an opportunity to set traps inside the houses before Harry and Marv arrive. And, if Kevin enters the house with the wet bandits, he must run around the house fighting them off. Kevin can cause Harry and Marv pain, using traps and some of the weapons. Once their pain meter is full, Harry and Marv will run away to another house. But while they're in the house, there is another meter that fills up as the wet bandits rob the place. If that meter fills up, Kevin will have failed to save the house. Just like in the movie, the wet bandits flood the house and move on to another place. This repeats until either all the houses are flooded, in which case it's game over for Kevin, or if Kevin can fend off the wet bandits and the police arrive. There are multiple endings based on how well players do and the difficulty setting, so it does encourage multiple playthroughs. But the game is known for being unintuitive and confusing for new players, and it doesn't have the best gameplay, so many people avoid it like the plague. However, it is a unique game, and once you understand it, it can be a flawed but fun challenge, so it might be worth giving it a shot. The Christmas tie-in is obvious. The game is based on the Christmas movie phenomenon, complete with snowy backdrops and holiday atmosphere. Once you get used to it, playing it can feel like stepping into the film's festive chaos, with Kevin's traps and burglar antics echoing the slapstick spirit of the holidays. And if Home Alone 1 doesn't float your Christmas gaming boat, then its sequel Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, just might. Released for the NES, Super NES, Game Boy DOS and Genesis, but not Mega Drive, Home Alone 2 is generally considered to be a much better game than its predecessor. Once again, the Sega game is different to the Super Nintendo version and is often seen as the much more enjoyable game. Released in December 1993, only in North America for the Genesis, Home Alone 2 is more of a typical action platformer compared to the original game. Players control Kevin McAllister as he makes his way through levels based on locations from the movie. The objective is simple, just get to the end of each level. However, along the way Kevin faces against enemies such as New Yorkers, certain animals such as cats and birds, and of course, the wet bandits are back. Each level sees Kevin running away from the wet bandits. Kevin can use projectiles to defend himself, and some levels have traps that can be set off to slow down or stop the wet bandits. Interestingly, the game gives players a certain level of freedom, because they can choose to try and get through the level as fast as possible, avoiding Harry and Marv. Or they can try and fight and beat them on each level. Upgrading Kevin's weapons helps a lot if you choose to stay and fight, but it's not necessary to finish the game. Ultimately, it's actually a pretty decent action platformer. It might not be as unique as the original game, but it's certainly more accessible and enjoyable for more gamers. And just like the first game, the Christmas theme is obvious, based on a Christmas movie with plenty of wintry and festive imagery throughout. Check it out. And I just wanted to add, if you are interested in Home Alone 1 and 2 but aren't sure if you should play them, then check out the videos by the Console Wars guys. They have done videos on both Home Alone 1 and Home Alone 2, where they compare the Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo versions of each game to see which one is best. They are both very fun videos and really interesting, so definitely check them out. Next up we have Snatcher, something that might not appear to have a Christmas tie-in at first glance, but trust me, this game is decorated with so much futuristic neo-tinsel and fairy lights, you'll need sunglasses to play it. Maybe not. Snatcher is a cyberpunk graphic adventure game developed and published by Konami. It was written and designed by Hideo Kojima of Metal Gear fame and first released in 1988 for the PC-88 and MSX2 in Japan. It was later released on the PC Engine, Mega CD, PlayStation, and Saturn. Despite having some of the original content censored, the Mega CD game is often considered the best version due to some additional content and gameplay mechanics not found in any other version. It was also the only version to be released in America and Europe, so it is the most accessible for Western audiences. Arriving on the Mega CD in Europe in December 1994 and North America in January 1995, Snatcher is often cited as one of the best narrative experiences on the Mega CD, blending Kojima's cinematic storytelling with interactive gameplay. Heavily influenced by the movie Blade Runner, Snatcher is a cyberpunk detective adventure where Gideon Seed hunts humanoid snatchers in Neo-Kobe City. Gameplay combines menu-based exploration, dialogue, and shooting segments. The mix of detective work and shooting action was unique for its time, especially with full voice acting. Doesn't sound much like a holly jolly Christmas affair, does it? Well, just like the much beloved Christmas movie film Die Hard, this game has a direct but subtle Christmas tie-in. The story begins on Christmas Eve 2047, grounding this dystopian tale with a festive date. The juxtaposition of holiday cheer with a dark cyberpunk mystery makes it stand out. But make no mistake, you'll see characters referencing the season throughout the game. So, just like Die Hard is very much a Christmas movie, Snatcher is very much a Christmas game. At least in my book. Another game that doesn't scream Christmas but has a closer connection than you might think or remember, it's Shenmue. From the mind of the legendary game director Yu Suzuki, Shenmue was originally released exclusively for the Dreamcast in Japan on the 29th of December 1999, in North America on the 8th of November 2000, and in Europe on the 1st of December 2000. Set in 1986, the story follows Ryo Hazuki investigating his father's murder in Yokosuka, Japan. Featuring genuinely groundbreaking visuals for its time, Shenmue is known for its incredible attention to detail, allowing players to wander the streets of an open-world Yokosuka. Players can examine almost every object in the game and talk to every single NPC, while on the hunt for Ryo's father's murderer. Players also engage in virtual fighter-style fights, engage in quick-time events, and also some awesome forklift racing and box stacking. No, seriously, it is really fun. Or they could chill at the arcade and play some real arcade games. One of the key things about Shenmue which made it so revolutionary for its time was the persistent world. Shops opened and closed at certain times, all characters had routines such as going to work at specific times, buses ran to set timetables, and even the weather system was based on actual Yokosuka weather records from 1986 to replicate the in-game weather system. Having a realistic, persistent world meant that gamers would often be wandering around the virtual streets in December 1986, and that's where the Christmas tie-in comes from. As December arrives, the town is decorated with lights, festive music plays, and a Santa NPC nicknamed Santa Maeno wanders around the streets. Santa Maeno is a sandwich poster man, basically a street advertiser by profession promoting local restaurants and bars. And from the 15th to the 25th of December, he dons a full Santa outfit and patrols Dobrita Street, bringing Christmas cheer to the masses. While not integral to the main gameplay or the plot, this seasonal immersion made Shenmue feel alive, with a festive holiday woven into its daily life simulation and giving gamers a chance to experience Yokosuka at Christmas time. For any true SEGA fan, this next game will probably have been the very first game that sprang to mind when seeing the title of this video. It's, of course, Christmas Nights into Dreams. Released in Japan on the 22nd of November 1996, in North America and Europe in December 1996, Christmas Nights into Dreams was developed by Sonic Team and published by SEGA. What makes Christmas Nights such a special item is that it was a demo disc, a festive sampler if you will, given away for free as a promotional item in Japan and as a demo disc with the official Saturn magazine in Europe and America. It serves as both a demo of the original Nights into Dreams and a unique standalone experience. It allows players to enjoy the world of Nights at Christmas, capturing the spirit of the festive season. The game transforms the lush environments of Spring Valley from the original game into a snowy, festive setting, complete with a new soundtrack and story elements. The story follows the protagonists of the original Nights into Dreams, Elliot and Clarice, as they embark on a quest to find the missing star for the Christmas tree in Twin Seed City. One of the best things about Christmas Nights is the unlockable content. After completing the stage with either character, players have the chance to unlock a present. Each present gives gamers access to bonus content, such as CG art galleries, photos and trailers for the original Nights into Dreams, and a karaoke version of Dreams. But the best bonus is unlocking Sonic the Hedgehog into Dreams. This replaced Nights with a fully 3D playable model of Sonic, making it the first time gamers were able to play as Sonic the Hedgehog in 3D. It even changes the appearance of the boss, Puffy, to look like Eggman. Christmas Nights was also included as an unlockable mode in the Nights into Dreams HD remaster on PC, Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. But, sadly, while the HD versions do keep the Christmas present unlockables, SEGA, for some reason, removed the awesome Sonic into Dreams bonus, making the Saturn version of Christmas Nights the most complete version. The Christmas tie-in is obvious here. The game is entirely themed around Christmas, snowy Spring Valley, decorations, and holiday music. Even the soundtrack was remixed with carols. This is possibly one of the most overtly Christmas-themed SEGA releases. Definitely check it out. And next up is the criminally underrated Dreamcast title that doesn't get enough praise in my book. It has the spirit of Christmas all over, even more so when its developers treated fans with a festive surprise. Developed by No Cliché and published by SEGA, Toy Commander launched in Europe on the 14th of October 1999 and in North America on the 2nd of November 1999. The game's plot revolves around a child named Guthie, or Andy in the American game, who gets new army-themed toys for Christmas and neglects his childhood favourites. The old toys, led by Huggy Bear, Guthie's childhood teddy bear, rebel and try to destroy the new toys. Each boss in the game has taken over a specific area of the house, serving as one of Huggy Bear's generals. Beating all the bosses quells the rebellion and restores peace to the house, because the old toys are happy that you've played with them again. This may sound a little bit silly and very much like Toy Story, but it's actually a really awesome and unique game for the Dreamcast. In the game, players must complete missions by controlling toys, usually in the form of vehicles. These missions take place in rooms of the house. The game is known for its unique tasks themed around the various vast, fully 3D household areas, such as kitchen, bedrooms, bathroom, and living room. With the original game only having a small reference to Christmas, the real Christmas tie-in came later. No Cliché created a special Christmas-themed demo of Toy Commander. It appeared in the demo disc in both the UK and US official Dreamcast magazine Holiday 2000 issues. The special demo has gamers playing as some of the usual toys you find in the main game, but also a jetpack-wearing Santa, trying to retrieve presents from around the house and place them under the Christmas tree. With the main game's plot loosely connected to Christmas and a special demo featuring festive missions with decorations and a jetpack-wearing Santa, this makes Toy Commander uniquely tied to the Christmas season for many SEGA gamers. Now we have another title that brought us a festive treat in an unexpected way. It's SEGA Touring Car Championship, which for ease I'll just call SEGA Touring Cars from now on. Developed by SEGA AM Annex and published by SEGA, SEGA Touring Cars was originally released in the arcades in 1996. It was then released for the Saturn in Europe on the 7th of November 1997, North America on the 24th of November 1997, and in Japan on the 27th of November 1997. A SEGA PC port was then released in 1998. Known for its remarkable sense of speed, high difficulty, and pumping techno music, SEGA Touring Cars is a semi-realistic arcade racer featuring, you guessed it, touring cars, which are production-based cars modified for competition. Despite the arcade game being praised for its realism, the home port ultimately suffered from the game's greatest accomplishment, the sense of speed. The Saturn port is blindingly fast, which was quite an achievement, but it came at the expense of glitchy visuals, an unsteady frame rate, and its twitchy controls meant that taming these touring car beasts was very difficult. Also, being an arcade port, the game didn't have a huge amount of content outside the handful of tracks and cars, so the game failed to impress next to the more accessible, realistic, and content-heavy races such as Gran Turismo on the PlayStation, which came out just a month later in Japan. That being said, if you enjoy arcade races and up for a challenge, SEGA Touring Cars is a fun ride once you get the hang of it. Oh, but where's the Christmas connection, I hear you ask? Well, the Christmas tie-in is indirect. The Saturn release was timed for the Christmas season, but why? Well, like some other Saturn games, SEGA Touring Car Championship uses the Saturn's internal clock to give gamers some fun bonuses. For example, set the date to 13th of February 1998, and you get a fun hit-and-run mode where you have to hit the cones. Set it to the 1st of April 1998, which is April Fool's Day, and you have to avoid hitting things while driving in the opposite direction to other cars. Or set the date to 25th of December 1997, roughly a month after the game's release, and players were treated to a special winter holiday event, where snow can be seen on the grass and the track is lined with Christmas trees complete with twinkling fairy lights. Yeah, it's not the most overtly Christmas-themed game on our list, but it's a cool hidden bonus, and the racing through a snowy festive circuit gave players a seasonal thrill, making it a fun Christmassy racing experience for all. The next game is as Christmassy as they come, but don't be surprised if you haven't even heard of it, and I'll explain why right now. Released in 1994, Days Before Christmas was developed by the Norwegian studio Funcom and published by Sunsoft. The game was originally released on the Mega Drive and shortly after was ported to the Super Nintendo. You might have noticed that I referenced the development studio's country. I did this for a reason. You see, Days Before Christmas was released on the Super Nintendo only in Europe and Australia. Now, that's not that unusual. Plenty of games only saw a release in Europe or PAL regions, but the Mega Drive version was only released in Australia. And that's pretty rare for games even back in the 90s. Usually PAL games were either Europe only or published in all PAL regions, including Australia. Because despite being a massive country, the Australian population and therefore gaming market is pretty small. So releasing a game only in Australia usually wasn't worth the expense. There were some Australian exclusives on platforms that were developed and published by Australian studios, which does make sense. But Days Before Christmas's Australian-only release seems a little bit extra weird, seeing as Funcom is a European studio and Sunsoft was Japanese. So why only release it in Australia? I tried to do some research online, and to be honest, I couldn't find any concrete information, so I guess we'll never know. But it's an interesting bit of Sega gaming history. Anyway, this makes Days Before Christmas one of the rarest releases on the Mega Drive. In fact, at the time of recording this video, I'm actually in Australia, and I've been to a few retro gaming stores around. Only one of them has a copy of Days Before Christmas, and it's going for nearly $1,000 Australian dollars, which is about 500 British pounds. Now, that's probably not the most expensive Mega Drive game out there, but that's probably because the game isn't actually that great. It's not terrible, but it's pretty simplistic, repetitive, and more suited to younger gamers, so it's never really had much of a big following. And if you haven't guessed by the game's title, the game has Christmas literally written all over it. If you don't know about it, players control Santa Claus as he races to save Christmas from an evil mouse who has stolen the kids' presents and cursed them with a spell. You fight giant rats, evil toys, and living snowmen using Santa's magical powers to turn them all into Christmas presents. He can also collect a power-up that makes him shoot flames, which melt ice, usually to help save reindeer. And Santa's magic can also be used to open Christmas presents scattered around the levels. These presents can contain enemies, power-ups, bells, elves, or bombs. In a break between platforming levels, at several points in the game, Santa flies in his sleigh and uses the presents he collects to drop them down chimneys in several locations around the world. One of the game's distinguishing features is Santa's ability to turn into his evil twin, Anti-Claus. By drinking a cup of tea, Santa transforms into a blue-suited, devilish-looking version of himself. As Anti-Claus, Santa is invincible, but he's unable to use magic or open presents. His primary method of attack is swinging his sack of toys at enemies. Anti-Claus's addition is part of what makes Days Before Christmas so easy. The game already has unlimited continues, but when you factor in Anti-Claus's invincibility, that makes an already easy game even easier. Ultimately, even though Days Before Christmas isn't a great game, it's full of Christmas spirit, and its limited release on the Mega Drive makes it somewhat of a curiosity for Sega fans, and the rarest Christmas title on our list. So it might just be worth checking out if you're interested. We have yet another entry that people might not associate with Christmas, but it has a direct Christmas connection from the off, and that is D2. Released exclusively for the Dreamcast in Japan on the 23rd of December 1999, and in North America on the 22nd of August 2000, D2 was developed and published by Warp in Japan and published by Sega in America. Sadly though, it did not see a PAL release. If you're not aware, D2 is a survival horror game starring the digital actress created by the late Kenji Eno, Laura. Laura has also appeared in two other Warp games created by Kenji Eno, D and Enemy Zero, both on the Saturn. Laura even appeared on the front cover of a Japanese fashion magazine in August 1999, showcasing the clothes of a real-life fashion designer, Yohiji Yamamoto. The original D game was an interactive FMV title, originally released for the Panasonic 3DO and later for the Saturn, PlayStation 1 and MS-DOS. While it shares the same franchise name and actress, D2 is a separate title with very different gameplay and mechanics. The game sees Laura stranded in the snowy Canadian wilderness after a plane she's on is taken over by a mysterious group of cultists and then hit by a meteorite, causing the plane to crash. D2 is a fully 3D title which sees Laura running around the snowy landscapes from a third-person view. While exploring the wilderness, Laura encounters random battles, at which point the camera moves into a first-person view and Laura is fixed to the spot. The only thing she can do is aim and fire her weapons, until all the monsters are killed. D2 mixes RPG and survival elements to make the game quite a unique experience. Players can earn experience points to level Laura up, and you can hunt animals for meat to restore health. The Christmas time is rather subtle, but comes in threefold. Firstly, the game's setting of snowy, wintry landscapes gives off the winter vibes most people come to expect from Christmas. Secondly, is the release date in Japan, just 2 days before Christmas. And thirdly, and more importantly, the game's story implies that it's set at Christmas. In the opening cutscene, you see Laura working on her laptop whilst on the plane. On a document, she enters the date December the 25th, 2000, and the location as over the Canada, and then she falls asleep before being jolted awake by a loud beep. And then, of course, cultists take over the plane, a meteorite hits the plane, and Laura wakes up in a mountain cabin where her and another survivor are attacked by a guy who transforms into a monster with long tentacles. You know, your typical everyday Hallmark Christmas affair. The overall plot is surreal, with the snowy setting and survival horror theme making D2 feel like a twisted festive nightmare, but it is really worth checking out if you can. Now, if we can all just agree that Die Hard is a Christmas movie, then this next game, also based on a movie, is definitely a Christmas game. One of my all-time favourites is Batman Returns. While movie tie-ins don't always go down well, Batman Returns is one that received generally favourable scores on the various platforms it released on. Batman Returns saw releases on the NES, Super Nintendo, Atari Lynx, Amiga, MS-DOS, Mega CD, Mega Drive, Master System, and the Game Gear. Most versions are very different from each other, with Sega publishing the titles on its platforms. What might come as a surprise is that I'm going to look at my favourite of the Sega releases, the Game Gear version, which is not only my favourite version of the game, but also one of my all-time favourite Game Gear titles, full stop. Released in Japan, America, and Europe in 1992, Batman Returns on the Game Gear was developed by Aspect and published by Sega. It's a side-scrolling action platformer loosely following Tim Burton's film. While it is a side-scrolling action platformer like the Mega Drive and Mega CD versions, the Game Gear looks and plays very differently to its 16-bit counterparts. The game follows Batman as he makes his way through the levels based on locations from the movie, such as Gotham streets, Shrek's department store, and even the sewers. Batman faces off against enemies based on the Red Triangle Gang from the movie, using a batarang to attack enemies and his trusty grappling hook to swing across gaps and reach higher platforms. He can also call in support from his Batmobile, similar to the original Streets of Rage special move, to cause heavy damage to all enemies on screen. The reason I think the Game Gear version is so good is because the gameplay is so tight and level design is very fun. The use and implementation of Batman's grappling hook really makes this game more enjoyable than the Mega Drive version to me. It's easy enough to master, and you can find yourself swinging across levels and dropping down behind enemies to take them out, just like the Cape Crusader himself. It's not a particularly long game, but it has decent replay value through the different routes you select as you progress through the game. And while it doesn't use any recognisable tunes from the Batman Returns movie, the game soundtrack is incredibly catchy and fitting for the game. It's also better than the Master System version in my opinion, which looks the same, but the Game Gear had some gameplay and level design tweaks that just make it a little bit more enjoyable. And the Christmas tie-in comes from the film itself. Batman Returns is set during Christmas in Gotham City. The game itself isn't overtly Christmassy, really only the first level shows any signs of being set at Christmas, with fairy lights in the design of Christmas trees hanging from lampposts on the Gotham streets and snow falling down at certain points. If you haven't tried Batman Returns on the Game Gear, I highly recommend it for an awesome 8-bit Christmas-related gaming session. Definitely check it out. In prime keeping with most of this list, we have another game that often isn't seen to be a Christmas game at first glance, but has mention of Christmas in the opening and even has entire areas decorated with a Christmas glow-up. Welcome to the wonderfully zany world of Blue Stinger. Released in Japan on the 25th of March 1999, in North America on the 9th of September 1999, and in Europe on the 14th of October 1999, Blue Stinger was developed by Climax Graphics and published by Sega in Japan and Activision in the West. Blue Stinger is an action-adventure horror game set on a research facility located on the fictional Dinosaur Island. When a meteor crash hits the island, an energy barrier encompasses the area, trapping those inside, and it's up to Elliot Ballard and companion Dogs Bauer to fight mutants and monsters and uncover the truth of Dinosaur Island and the research facility. While the game takes inspiration from titles such as Resident Evil, Enemy Zero, and Alone in the Dark, the game's creator, Shinya Nishigaki, took most of his inspiration from Hollywood movies, in particular John Carpenter's The Thing. The game was originally intended for release on the Saturn, but, at Sega's request, development was moved to the Dreamcast. This is said to have been a blessing and a curse for the game. Moving development to the Dreamcast meant that the game could be a launch title in the US for Sega's new hardware. It would also mean the game could look better and Nishigaki could realise some more of his creativity for the game. But the downside was that the team didn't have much time to get used to Sega's new hardware. Because of this, the team didn't utilise a lot of what the Dreamcast could actually handle, such as bump mapping. As a result, Blue Stinger looked and felt lackluster upon release for the new 128-bit console. In a later interview, Nishigaki claimed that they only used about 50% of the Dreamcast's true potential making the game. Also, it's been said that the team initially planned to include Janine as a playable character and also have dogs follow Elliot around during gameplay, but the game engine couldn't handle 2 playable characters on screen at one time, and the team ran out of time to develop Janine as a playable character. Blue Stinger's Christmas tie-in initially comes from the game's opening, where Elliot and his friend Tim are out fishing on a boat and mention they need to decorate said boat in time for a Christmas party. The Christmas theme becomes more prominent as players progress, with very vivid Christmas decorations, neon signs, and blaring festive music in the Hello Market Mall. At one point in the game, Dogs even dons a full Santa Claus outfit. It's meant to be a plot device and also a comical moment in the game. And then finally, there's a passcode used to open certain doors, which is 1224, or the American way of writing the 24th of December, Christmas Eve. So despite this game being a campy action-adventure horror title, it really is steeped in Christmas fanfare throughout. And, if you may indulge me, there are a few more interesting bits of Blue Stinger trivia you may not know about. The first factoid is that the voice actors for the main characters in the game, Elliot, Dogs, and Janine, were voiced by Ryan Drummond, the late Dean Bristow, and Lani Minella, who respectively voiced Sonic the Hedgehog, Dr. Eggman, and Rouge the Bat from the Sonic the Hedgehog game series. Second bit of trivia for you is that the team were able to bring in some genuine Hollywood talent to help make the game. Notably, Robert Short, an Academy Award-winning makeup artist, was brought in as the monster designer, which I think he did a pretty decent job, because most of the monsters and mutants in the game do look pretty good for their time. And there was Pete Von Scholly. He was brought in as a storyboard artist and camera consultant. Now, if you only played the US or European releases of the game, you might be thinking, but the camera work sucks in Blue Stinger. It gets stuck directly behind the characters and sometimes behind walls. Well, you're right, but the original Japanese version of the game features semi-fixed cameras, similar to Resident Evil Code Veronica, where the cameras are set angles or distances and will move with the action. This was part of Nishigaki's original vision of making the game feel like a Hollywood movie, which Sega honoured. But when it came time for the Western release, Activision was the publisher in charge of the purse strings, and they insisted upon making the camera follow the player, because, apparently, that's what Western audiences like. Suddenly, having to change the cameras at meter-tight deadline meant that sadly, the American and PAL versions of Blue Stinger do really suffer from bad camera angles, especially in tight areas. Thanks, Activision. But the good news is, if you can get your hands on the Japanese version of the game, the entire game was recorded in English using the American voice actors I mentioned previously. Again, this is part of the creator's vision to make it feel and sound like a Hollywood movie, even for the Japanese market. Thirdly, for my fellow Pen Triathlon fans out there, Blue Stinger has in-game posters and stamp machines which feature Pen Triathlon characters on them. It's curious because the games have no direct connection, but apparently this was a fun way of Sega to try and do some cross-promotion between its Dreamcast titles. It's a cool idea, but the only problem is that if you didn't know anything about Pen Triathlon, you probably wouldn't even realise Sega was trying to advertise another game. But for fans of the game, it's a pretty cool Easter egg. So, anyway, Christmas, that's what we're talking about, right? With the mention of a Christmas party at the start, the very in-your-face Christmas signs and music, Dog Santa outfit, and a special Christmas Eve passcode, Blue Stinger is possibly the most Christmassy and non-Christmas themed game out there. And, despite getting mixed reviews at launch, it is actually a pretty fun game and has received a cult following over the years, and it's definitely worth checking out. This final game on the list features a long-forgotten mascot of the 90s, which is so Christmassy it's hard not to place it at the top of the list, and that is James Bond 2, Codename RoboCod. James Bond 2, Codename RoboCod was released in Europe in 1991 and in North America in 1992 for the Mega Drive and Genesis. Developed by Vectordine and Millennium Interactive, James Bond 2 was released on basically every major platform you could think of from the 90s, but it was originally released on the Amiga, Atari ST and Sega Mega Drive in 1991 by 3 different publishers, with Electronic Arts handling the publishing on all the different Sega platforms. It also received budget releases over the years to more modern consoles, with the latest being on the Nintendo Switch in 2019. The original James Pond Underwater Agent was a colourful aquatic parody of the James Bond franchise. It was rather unique in that it was a platformer where most of the game was based underwater, with a few sections where James Pond would hop on land. Each level had James Pond achieve certain missions, usually by solving puzzles or finding specific items. Set directly after the first game, James Pond 2 took gameplay onto land and turned it into a slightly more traditional platformer game, but with a big twist. This time James Pond loses his tuxedo from the first game and dons a robotic suit, similar in style to that of RoboCop. hence the game's pun-based name and also the game's main song being based on the RoboCod theme. This robotic suit allows James Bond to stretch vertically for a near infinite distance, giving the game a unique mechanic where players can stretch up, cling to ceilings, and explore levels in unconventional ways. As such, the game's levels are often vast with lots of vertical movement, as well as traditional horizontal progression. And you might be wondering about the Christmas tie-in? Well, the story and the setting is delightfully festive. The villain from the first game, Dr. Maybe, has escaped to the North Pole and taken over Santa's workshop, and James Bond must rescue penguins and toys to save Christmas. The game features a hub area, which is the exterior of Santa's giant workshop, which is covered with snow, and a light festive tune accompanies you as you go from level to level. To get to the different levels, you enter doors in Santa's workshop hub area. Each door has pictures on the front, usually indicating the theme of the level. The game features 50 levels in total, and most of them aren't small. After entering and completing 2 doors, James Bond can move on to the Guardian door, where a boss battle awaits. The gameplay is unique as it doesn't quite play like any other platformer. The use of James Bond's stretchy body makes things interesting, while the level designs vary from vast sprawling open areas with many platforms, to narrow corridors, to a quite traditional run left to right horizontal affairs. What adds to the enjoyment of the game are some of the pickups. James Bond can get the usual bonuses such as health and invincibility, but he can also get wings that let him fly, and also use certain vehicles including a car, plane and even a flying bathtub, complete with showerhead and bath cap. The game is actually pretty crazy at times. In terms of Christmas, what's interesting is that most of the levels, nor the enemies themselves, are really Christmas themed until later in the game, but they are on point. Because this is Santa's workshop, each level is filled with toy and sweet themed enemies and backdrops. Speaking of sweets, the UK version of the game features penguin bars, the delicious UK chocolate biscuit treat made by McVitie's as a quirky bit of product placement. Growing up as a British kid in the 90s, your lunchbox simply wasn't complete without one, and the time of a video game was really exciting for me as a child. Seemingly though, this product placement was in keeping with the game's prominent penguin rescuing theme, but sadly this was changed in later platform releases in the early 2000s and onwards, where the penguins were replaced by elves. Later in the game, things do start to feel a little bit more festive as you do face off against enemies such as snowmen, and the background music becomes more Christmassy with a fun rendition of Jingle Bells to round off the final few levels. Plus, the hub area and the entire plot revolves around saving Santa's factory, arguably making it one of the most overtly festive themed titles on the Sega platform. So, that just about rounds up this 12 Days of Sega Christmas video. I hope you enjoyed it and get a chance to check out some of these festive titles. But wait, I haven't explained why I put the games in this order, have I? Well, let's just say we here at Sega Spirit wish you all a very Merry Christmas, and here's a little song to kickstart your festive season. Merry Christmas, everybody. Take it away. On the first day of Christmas, Sega gave to me Sonic Adventure DLC. On the second day of Christmas, Sega gave to me 2 Home Alone games and Sonic Adventure DLC. On the third day of Christmas, Sega gave to me Snatcher SEGA Christmas, 2 Home Alone games and Sonic Adventure DLC. On the fourth day of Christmas, Sega gave to me Shenmue Santa Maeno, Snatcher SEGA Christmas, 2 Home Alone games and Sonic Adventure DLC. On the fifth day of Christmas, Sega gave to me Christmas Nights into Dreams, Shenmue Santa Maeno, Snatcher SEGA Christmas, 2 Home Alone games and Sonic Adventure DLC. On the sixth day of Christmas, Sega gave to me Toy Commander's Demo, Christmas Nights into Dreams, Shenmue Santa Maeno, Snatcher SEGA Christmas, 2 Home Alone games and Sonic Adventure DLC. On the seventh day of Christmas, Sega gave to me Sega Touring Cards Winter Holiday, Toy Commander's Demo, Christmas Nights into Dreams, Shenmue Santa Maeno, Snatcher SEGA Christmas, 2 Home Alone games and Sonic Adventure DLC. On the eighth day of Christmas, Sega gave to me Days Before Christmas, Sega Touring Cards Winter Holiday, Toy Commander's Demo, Christmas Nights into Dreams, Shenmue, Santa Maeno, Snatcher, SEGA Christmas, 2 Home Alone games and Sonic Adventure DLC. On the 9th day of Christmas, Sega gave to me D2's Festive Nightmare, Days Before Christmas, Sega Touring Cards Winter Holiday, Toy Commander's Demo, Christmas Nights into Dreams. Shenmue, Santa Maeno, Snatcher, SEGA Christmas, 2 Home Alone games and Sonic Adventure DLC. On the 10th day of Christmas, Sega gave to me Batman Returns on Game Gear, D2's Festive Nightmare, Days Before Christmas, Sega Touring Cards Winter Holiday, Toy Commander's Demo, Christmas Nights into Dreams. Shenmue, Santa Maeno, Snatcher, SEGA Christmas, 2 Home Alone games and Sonic Adventure DLC. On the 11th day of Christmas, Sega gave to me Blue Stinger's Christmas Eve, Batman Returns on Game Gear, D2's Festive Nightmare, Days Before Christmas, Sega Touring Cards Winter Holiday, Toy Commander's Demo, Christmas Nights into Dreams. Shenmue, Santa Maeno, Snatcher, SEGA Christmas, 2 Home Alone games and Sonic Adventure DLC. On the 12th day of Christmas, Sega gave to me James Bond Saving Santa's Workshop, Blue Stinger's Christmas Eve, Batman Returns on Game Gear, D2's Festive Nightmare, Days Before Christmas, Sega Touring Cards Winter Holiday, Toy Commander's Demo, Christmas Nights into Dreams. Shenmue, Santa Maeno, Snatcher, SEGA Christmas, 2 Home Alone games and Sonic Adventure DLC.